Welcome back. We often hear about the pleasant or heavenly near-death experience, but surprisingly, not all of them are. A literature review covering over 30 years of research concluded that as many as 1 in 5 can be distressing. These happen under the same range of circumstances and share many of the same aspects as pleasant NDEs. The difference lies in the range of emotions, with reports ranging from fear to guilt to despair. Just like pleasant NDEs, they can happen to anyone despite religious or spiritual views. And just because you feel that you're a good moral individual, it doesn't mean that you'll get a pleasant NDEs. And the same goes for distressing NDEs. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person either. Today with us to share her distressing experience is Kat Dunkle. Kat's son was struck and killed by a car. She was beside herself with grief. One night, Kat took her anger on her husband and he pushed her away. She hit the car door so hard it burst the sac around her liver, rupturing the liver into pieces. She was rushed to the hospital where she flatlined and was declared clinically dead. Kat, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Now sounds super scary and sad. Tell us about what happened during this time and afterward with your near-death experience.
Well, when I was taken to the hospital, they took me into surgery. I didn't have much time to ask many questions. They put a mask over my face, and I started losing consciousness. And as I was going under, I realized I couldn't breathe. And I was struggling terribly to breathe and wanted to tell the doctors I was going to die because I couldn't breathe. And so my struggle was in that. And it was just a matter of seconds, I suppose, but it seemed like forever. I felt myself being pulled through into a realm, and I realized I didn't need to breathe. I was okay, and it felt strange, but I was okay, and I started to calm down. And I would say I was floating. I don't know, I was moving forward. And I saw down below me my husband and my 2 sons, and they were crying because I had died. And I wanted to tell them, no, I'm fine, but I was told they would be fine, not in verbal words, but just mind communication, if you will. And they would be fine, and I felt peace with that and started moving on again. And I saw four human figures standing there, and they had very concerned looks on their faces, and that confused me. I wondered, why are they so concerned? And we passed by them. And then the thought came to me, there is no God. And I will say, prior to this, I had for more like 15 years had no belief in God whatsoever. I was brought up in a home with alcoholic parents and suffered verbal and mental abuse, and pretty much became God of my own life. I knew that no one would take care of me but me. And so that's how I lived my life, was through rebellion and anger. And so that's what the type of person I was going into this experience. And when my son was killed, I became a very, very angry person. People would say to me things about God, and I would scream at them, I'll tell you about your God. Your God kills little children, and become very, very angry. So my thought was, as I went through now, that there is no God. And all of a sudden there was a noise, and I can only liken it to standing right next to a freight train, louder than any noise that I can explain to you. And then something that was pulling through the middle of my stomach like a rope, and burning and pulling through me. And then it just stopped, and the thought was conveyed to me, there is a God, God is real. And I immediately, it was a knowing again that I can't express to you in human words that I knew. I mean, I know I'm sitting in this spot right now speaking to you, and that was like I knew that I knew that I knew. And then I moved on, and the thought came to me, there is no heaven. And all of a sudden I heard that loud noise again. I felt the pulling through the middle of me, and again it stopped. And I knew there was a literal place called heaven, and I was approaching that. And I had peace. I had every emotion, good emotion that you could have, all wrapped into one that was not describable, just impossible to even come close to it. And there was a brightness, a light that I was heading towards. I knew I was going to enter into heaven. I knew God was with me. I was so excited, and then all of a sudden, just like you were sitting there and the floor just opened up, I started falling into total darkness. And I felt burning over my entire body. There was no fire because there would have been light, but my entire body felt the pain of burning, and I was falling. And I knew that I was in hell. And I knew that I couldn't be rescued, and I was screaming, God, I believe in you now. I know that you exist. Please help me. But I knew somehow that God didn't even enter into this place, that I was totally separated, totally alone. There was no one that even knew that I was there, that I would fall and I would burn forever and ever and ever and ever. I couldn't commit suicide. I couldn't make it stop. Nobody could save me. That's how I would spend eternity. And I was wrong, thank goodness, because at that point,
how do you feel
things
now
started.
that you've been through that, I mean, pretty distressing experience? How do you feel now, and how have you reconciled it?
How do I feel now about it?
Yeah.
I feel, well, I was taken back. Everything kind of spiraled backwards, and I went back through the tunnel. And just as I was about to, what I believe, come back to life again, I felt the actual will to live enter into me. And I heard the words, bring people to me. And then I got this excitement as I felt the will to live enter back into me, that I was going to live. And I wanted at that point then to live. And I woke up screaming, there is a God, there is a God. So how I feel about it now is very excited, very grateful that I'm here, that I know God exists, and I've spent the last 40 some years doing what I believe God has called me to do.